Hello, everyone. It's at the top of the hour here. Welcome. My name is Jefferson Barr, and for better or worse, I'm the host of today's webinar. Trust me, it won't be that bad. But we thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule today to join us. We appreciate you giving us the next hour of your day. I know we're all crazy busy right now. We're in the heart of the holiday season. Hanukkah, Christmas is less than 2 weeks away, and we all have a lot to do, I'm sure. So again, thank you for taking the time to hear about our story today. So we're thrilled to tell the story about the incredible journey that Best Vinyl has gone with by unlocking a staggering $1.3 million they had tied up in inventory. So we want today's session to be interactive and informative. So you'll see some poll questions come up. So please take a moment to respond to these, and we can kind of review and discuss the results as they come along. But also feel free to comment in the chat window throughout the session. You'll see that. And as a matter of fact, please give us a quick shout out. Let us know where you're located. I'll start with myself. I'm based out of New Jersey on the southern coast. They call it, down the shore, as they say around here. And I'm the head of marketing Netstock, and I've been with the company for a little over a year now. And so just a quick plug for Netstock for those of you who aren't familiar with us. Netstock provides SaaS-based inventory management and inventory optimization solutions. And we basically, our target market is we arm small and medium-sized companies with a simple but robust solution, allowing them to essentially level the playing field against their larger competitors. We often say they kind of punch up above their weight. We have over 2,200 customers across multiple industries and verticals, and we've been in business since 2009. We're also super happy to have Acumatica today supporting us on the webinar. And Acumatica is a strategic ERP partner of Netstock, and Best Vinyl is a customer of both Netstock and Acumatica. And I'll let James give a quick plug for Acumatica shortly. So let's get to the panel. So I'm honored to have this esteemed panel here to help us dive deeper into some of the common supply chain challenges that all businesses are facing today, especially SMBs. And I'll let them introduce themselves. So let's hand it over to our honored customer, Justin. So Justin, take it away, please.
Thank you, Jefferson. I've been with Best Vinyl in various roles for the last 13 or so years. Best Vinyl is a multi-state contractor specializing in fences, decks, and pergolas. So that's a little bit about me and our company.
Great. Barry, why don't you take it next?
Yeah, good day, everyone. Nice to be here with you. My name is Barry Cook. I am one of the co-founders and currently serve as the CTO of Netstock, and obviously been with the business since the inception. And it's always exciting for me to hear stories from our customers, where they make a real impact in their businesses. So looking forward to today's webinar.
Definitely. And finally, let me get this. There you go. So there's the slides for you. James, take it away, sir.
Oh, thank you very much, Jefferson. James Mallory with Acumatica, product marketing manager for distribution and manufacturing. And just wanted to walk you through just a quick highlight on who we are as a company. Acumatica, we pride ourselves in being different by design. We're built from the ground up on the cloud. One thing that makes us a little different, we're focused exclusively on the small and mid-sized businesses. We offer unlimited license fees, and we have a singular product focus. The vast majority of our customers are in inventory-centric businesses, which is why our partnership with Netstock is so strategic to us. We focus on distribution, retail, manufacturing. And unlike some of our competitors, we have a single product focus. Everything we do goes into Acumatica, and it's pretty significant. We also are very customer driven, so product enhancements tend to come from our customer base. They can log on in the community, recommend features they want to see in the product, and then upvote them. And we are very partner centric, and we have a unique customer bill of rights. A little bit more about us on the bottom. You guys can read that kind of at your leisure, but we can move on. Just wanted to paint a picture of our solution for distributors, manufacturers, and other inventory-centric businesses. We automate everything from the sales side, the stock side, and the buy side. I'm not going to go through all the features here, but lots of functionality. And it is a complete ERP suite. So in addition to all of this functionality that you would expect, it's built on a very robust and broad financial suite. And then we have industry-specific functionality if you happen to be in construction, manufacturing, retail. We have production management. We have connectors to retail and commerce applications, as well as really everything else that you would need to manage your business: payroll, project accounting, service management, quality, etc. So just a quick high level of who we are.
Great. Thank you very much, James. All right, so as we get into this, just a few housekeeping points. We do have you all on mute, but you can still ask questions. Please do. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. You'll find this in the menu tray, either at the top or bottom of your screen. Feel free to ask as many questions as you like, but we'll get to these at the end of today's discussion. Just queue them up as we go. So, and finally, we'll be sending today's recording to all registrants within 48 hours. So let's put some further context about what we're talking about today, today's discussion. Companies continue to battle ongoing inventory management challenges, and we often say it's kind of like walking a tightrope. Too much inventory ties up your capital, while stockouts can be costly misstep, and this is going to hurt your sales and your company's reputation. And in a recent industry survey, 78% of small to mid-sized businesses admitted to not using a purpose-built inventory solution. In other words, they're still using spreadsheets, homegrown solutions, etc. And we all know how critical it is to have the right amount of inventory at the right time. We also know that many companies continue to use a manual process for their inventory management needs, and some continue to use an ERP to satisfy this. So enough of me talking. Let's take our first poll. So let's cue that up. And just take a quick minute to answer these. All right. Let me give a couple more minutes, seconds rather. Okay, let's share the results. Okay, so it looks like majority are through the ERP. That's interesting. So we can kind of get into how people are managing inventory through the ERPs as opposed to a solution like Netstock. All right. So let's get on to the crux of this discussion today. So Justin has been kind enough to spend some time with us. So Justin, perhaps if you could set the scene for us today, what challenges did Best Final face from an ERP, for both an ERP and an inventory management perspective prior to deploying both Netstock and Acumatica?
So Best Final started in 2000, and up until 2018, we had used various accounting systems and anything from notebooks to Excel spreadsheets to track and plan for inventory. In 2018, we were using a Sage product called Mass 90 for our ERP, and it was a sufficient ERP, but it lacked really great inventory tools, and it was kind of getting to the end of its life cycle for us. We were maxing it out, and so it became a little unstable. So at that point, we decided it was time to look for a new ERP, and as we started down that path looking for a new ERP, I started to look a little more closely at kind of our inventory ordering process and inventory management process. And at the time, it was just a really complex Excel-based tool that relied on data from various sources and even a fairly significant amount of manual input. And it would take a full uninterrupted day for me to get an order ready to kind of start the conversation. So 8 hours worth of uninterrupted time. So clearly that was more than one calendar day, because who can have 8 hours uninterrupted these days?
Yeah.
And And so that's kind of where we were at the time. So those were kind of the challenges. And then we started the evaluation process for the ERP. One of our main criteria for the ERP was that it was a full cloud-based solution and had open architecture so that we could integrate other tools or other data as needed. When we started down this path of looking at ERP solutions, we realized how much functionality we were missing out on. And we started out by finding a good partner, somebody who could consult with us and help us, kind of sift through all of the options that are out there. And our partner quickly, showed us some demos, and then we got to Acumatica, and we pretty quickly realized that it was checking all the boxes that we were looking for. And then during that evaluation process, the partner suggested that we take a look at Netstock and see what we thought about that. And, we did a demo, and after just seeing all the tools that were there and realizing how archaic our system was, more or less after that one demo, I was sold. I was ready to go. And that's kind of how our journey with Netstock began.
At what point did you realize, I mean, maybe the partner brought this to your attention, but that you needed what we call a purpose-built inventory management solution? In other words, not using functionality that exists within Acumatica. What was that kind of tipping point?
Yeah, as we kind of discussed more about our business and the complexities that we face, we're based in Utah in the United States, so we're very seasonal. When it snows here in the winter between, November and February, people are not necessarily interested in outdoor projects.
Yeah.
So, we got the seasonality part to deal with. And then we also have a bunch of different business channels. So we install commercially and residentially. And there, we can determine the lead time there. So planning for that inventory is a little easier. But then we also have a wholesale side of the business where we can't predict as accurately who may walk through the door and what they may want to order tomorrow. So those complexities, as we talked about those, that's when the partner said, "Hey, I think there's probably some tools out there that are going to be better for you to try to manage this than just through the ERP. Just provide a different interface." And that's really what I was looking for was, I'm comfortable with the ERP, accounting background, finance for a long time. So I was comfortable with the ERP, but Netstock provides just a different interface for different types of employees to look at that I think is a little easier to drill into than into the ERP.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We hear that a lot. All right. So let's move on to James. So James, sort of a two-part question here. Tell us more about Acumatica's expertise in helping companies manage their inventory, one, and two, kind of give us another oversight of what sets Acumatica apart from other competitors in the ERP space.
Good question there, Jefferson. As we mentioned before, we've worked with over 10,000 customers, and the vast majority of them are in inventory-centric businesses. So I think that speaks to our expertise, again, focused on the SMB market. As far as our ability to help companies manage inventory, we provide, I think, a pretty good base of functionality for companies like Best Vinyl. Our inventory system supports kitting, item suggestions, things like upsell, cross-sell, item substitutions. We have a pretty robust back order management capability, flexible product pricing, embedded WMS. In fact, our WMS, I think, is a differentiator. A lot of mid-market products don't have WMS. Yeah, and we support things like wave and batch picking, lot and serial tracking. Along with with Netstock as a partner of ours, we do partner with other solutions for shipping, EDI, some other applications that extend the application for some very specific business scenarios. As far as what sets us apart, I think there's a lot of things. We're the fastest growing ERP for a reason. We're rated very high for usability. Again, we have that single product focus. Every dollar that our customers invest goes right back into the product. And it's a full suite. Not only do we have the inventory, the order management, we have everything else a company would need, the whole breadth of financials to analyze what happened, automate AR, automate AP, and then, sort of like Best Final again, Justin mentioned, service management. That's something that natively comes with Acumatica.
That's great. Yeah, it's a lot. So that's really outstanding. So Barry, let me throw it over to you now. So from your perspective, we kind of talked about this earlier with Justin, but at what point should a business start looking for, a purpose-built inventory management solution like Netstock in conjunction with their ERP? I'll throw this in there. I've kind of heard it's a match made in heaven, but maybe that's something that marketing said. I'm not sure. So, but why don't you talk about that for a second?
So I think, Jefferson, many companies, get to that point, like you say, where, the next step would be like a purpose-built system. And what we see often is that after a successful ERP implementation, and once you can get your base data, the source of truth is correct, that's the time when it becomes important to go, right, let's go, the next level. If you don't have your system of truth, the absolute correct inventory, values and transactions and so on, it becomes a little bit more difficult to implement a purpose-built system, like Netstock. I always think the way I explain it to people is a good ERP system will allow you to press a button and immediately see how many of this widget do I have in my warehouse, in aisle C, rack 5, bucket F. And if you press the button, it might say there's 73. And you can bet your bottom dollar, if you walk there and count them, there'll be 73, right? So that's when a real good ERP implementation is working. But then the next question comes, how many should there be, right? And that's when you want to step forward and start predicting how many we're going to sell, how long does it take to get them in from our suppliers or to get them together, or all that kind of stuff. And especially when you start having a little bit of a more complex internal supply chain, that's where a custom built, not a custom built, but a fit for purpose tool becomes really important. So, and that's where we want to play. We love our ERP partners. As you said, Acumatica is one of our best partners, and the reason is because of the fundamentals are really strong in Acumatica. And then on top of that, you can now start looking and predicting into the future what you need to do and how much should you have.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of speaking to my next part B of your question. So walk us through the overlap and differences between inventory management and inventory control. You kind of highlighted that briefly, but
yeah. So the way we look at it is we think of kind of 3 layers. The bottom layer, like I said, the bedrock is absolutely the inventory control, and that's generally where your ERP does a great job. Controlling all the transactions, what's coming in, what's going out, how much do we have, the stock takes, all of that kind of stuff. That's the absolute important bedrock that you need to do. On top of that, you will then have inventory optimization. So that's like answering that question of how many should we have, right? And there's a whole process that you have to go through to understand how to get to the optimal level of inventory. You have to classify the items. You have to make a forecast. You have to understand the risks for every single item, which could be different from item to item. You have to set safety stocks. And then finally, you can understand, once you have your safety stocks, your min and your max levels, which are dynamic over time, then you can understand where I have too much, where I have too little, when I should place the order, and so on. So that's the optimization. And the optimization really is saying that if I take that example of the widget, you've got 73, but you should have 55, right? That's the optimal level that you should have. And then what we look at is the level under that is what we call inventory management, and that is basically getting you from that optimized level and actually executing on that to get you there. And the way that we look at the inventory management is when you place purchase orders on your supplier, place the correct order, don't place too many, don't place too little, the right inventory, the right place, the right time. And if you just do that, your inventory will over time tend to get to that optimal level. But of course, then there's ways to short circuit that. So if you have a good, robust dashboarding, which will tell you which are the items that really you have too much of, or we're potentially going to stock out of, and so on, you can shorten that time to get to that optimal level. And that's where the inventory management comes in. And the inventory management is really the bridge between that optimal level and back down to your ERP or your inventory control level, because you can now push those purchase orders back into your ERP and have a seamless, data transfer there. So that's the way we kind of look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it's very clear, and it definitely helps, to have both, right? I mean, oftentimes when you have complex, as Justin was saying before, complex supply chain needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So just moving on here. So in the survey you mentioned earlier, 93% of respondents revealed that over the past 3 years, they're still stockpiling larger amounts of inventory due to ongoing kind of disruptive supply chain events. So let's take our next poll, and it's, what is your biggest inventory challenge? Let's give a few moments to pop in an answer there. So it looks like it's almost all of the above.
Yeah, it's very interesting that there's almost the same number of people who have a problem with too much, and the same number of people who have a problem with too little. And we see that often. People have both problems. Sometimes the one is more dominant than the other, but it's you're running out of the stuff that really sells well, and you have too much of the stuff that don't sell well, and that's always the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know if you notice the same trends, Justin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, depending on who you asked in our organization a few years ago, they would have said the biggest issue was stockouts. And, after we got Netstock, and we're going to talk about this more, but after we got Netstock, we all began to realize that excess inventory was probably our biggest issue.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, I think that's kind of the highlight of the story here. Okay, so moving on. So you kind of touched upon this before, but we'll just, doesn't hurt to repeat things sometimes. But so Justin, what was the criteria when you were selecting the inventory management solution? You mentioned a couple of things about seamless integration with the ERP, but what were some of the other critical factors that you considered when selecting Netstock?
Yeah, we were looking for something that could give us real-time data. So as changes were happening in the ERP, those same changes were being reflected in the inventory management. That we didn't have to upload a file or, wait a week or a month to then start being able to analyze it. So that was key, that it was a seamless integration, and that I did not want to have to manage any sort of data transfer. That was key, that it just happened, that we'd be informed if for some reason that link was broken, and, then we could address it and fix it. But it needed to just happen so that the data was available when I wanted it. And then, so that was kind of on the architecture side. And then from a functionality side, we needed this system to be able to adapt to our specific business needs. Every business is different. Every business functions differently. So, like I said, we're very seasonal in certain types of our business, and we have different channels that we're operating in that kind of need to be looked at separately. So that was critical for us to have a tool that could adapt to those specific criteria. Otherwise, we were going to be left with, our same Excel spreadsheet. We were just going to be pulling data out of Acumatica to try to look at it. So, those were the first, critical factors we looked at.
That's great. Yeah, you don't want to be spending 8 hours a day on an Excel file any longer, right?
No, I had enough of that. So that was the beauty of Netstock once we got it running.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again here. Let's see. So I think that's there. Yep. So this, again, everyone, Justin has been kind enough to share his story, his success case study here, but also some data. This is the data based on go live with Acumatica and Netstock. So maybe, Justin, if you could walk us through this, and Barry, add in any insights as well, please.
Yeah, so, you can see where we started. And the first few months, that we had Netstock, I was really just watching. I was just seeing as we were doing our normal process of ordering and managing inventory. I was just watching. And then we had just really clear, actionable data. Barry mentioned the dashboard, and that's what I rely on to help manage, or at least identify the things they ought to think about today, from both the stock outside and the excess inventory side. Mm-hmm. So that dashboard was huge for me to be able to pull it up, to take a snapshot, to then go have conversations with all sorts of different team members. We, from our warehouse folks to our sales guys, and be able to say, hey, here's the items that we are overstocked on. What can we do about it? Are there customers out there that we can reach out to? Are there different ways that we can assemble the products together to help move some of this slow moving stuff? But then the biggest thing was just not ordering them, until we needed to. Like Barry said, as the story got better in Acumatica and then better in Netstock, it just helped us identify, nope, still don't need to order that. Still don't need to order that. So then over that nice long downfall in the graph there, that's what we were doing. We were just only ordering those things that we needed, because we had clarity on what that was. Okay. And then, as you can see in the dates below and how they correspond with COVID, we started to purposefully increase our inventory as we were dealing with supply chain issues during COVID, because it was always a question of, okay, I can get it today, but am I going to be able to get it tomorrow? So, we just made a conscious decision to drive inventory back up again. But that was also something that we got from Netstock, was we could clearly see exactly what we needed. So we could have really focused conversations with our supplier on SKU by SKU. These are the things that are important. These are when I need to have them. And, that clarity we had from Netstock really allowed those conversations to be very pointed and very focused. So, then the business has kind of changed and evolved. And so in some ways you might think that Netstock isn't doing its job anymore, or we're not paying attention anymore, but, we're making some conscious decisions to drive inventory, different types of products, et cetera, that kind of lead to the increase. But with our main products, that decrease was, I consider, almost 100% attributable to the data that we were able to see through Netstock.
And is it coming back down, as we get into 23, just due to seasonality, or is that another, business decision to kind of reduce the inventory?
Yeah, the business has evolved a little bit. We were much more heavily focused on fence products during that previous period, and the market here has changed a little bit in the Intermountain West, and so we have reduced our inventory levels on fence products and started some other ancillary products. So that was part of the rise, was seeing this shift and and changing our business model to address what the consumers were looking for, and now we're just kind of driving down that inventory of the products that we're not selling as much of anymore.
But it gives you ability to make the visibility to be able to do that effectively with your inventory then.
Correct. And as our business expanded with new locations and trying to optimize inventory levels between those locations, Netstock was huge in that, because it not only was it easy to kind of flip between those different warehouses, but it was easy to see it on a consolidated level as well. So we were able to better manage those resources that we had, and really just kind of transfer things between the different locations.
Great. Okay, cool. I'm going to stop sharing this and move on. So we're going to keep hounding you with questions, Justin. So what would, we've talked about a lot of the benefits, but what were some of the unexpected benefits that became apparent after the implementation of both solutions? And how do they impact your operations? I mean, that's kind of a broad question, but.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And it kind of goes back to that poll that we just took and what I said, that, some people would say stockouts were our problem and others would say excess inventory was our problem. I think one of the benefits that I didn't expect to see so quickly was a recognition from our whole team that the entire process was critical. Kind of the garbage in, garbage out phrase, that people began to realize that, hey, if we're not inputting our cycle counts timely and accurately, then we're unable to forecast accurately. If we're not receiving incoming inventory timely, if we're not processing sales orders and invoices on a timely basis, then it just the reliance on that data, people don't trust it. And so that was one of the best unexpected benefits, I think, that came out of the dual implementation was, hey, we have this new ERP and people are trying to figure that out, but we also had this great visibility into inventory, and people began to see that, hey, if I don't do the rest of this well, then what comes out on the back end is just not helpful.
Yeah. Garbage out, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of a good segue to the next question. So this is about change management. So, at what stage of the planning process did you, consider, did your team consider how to handle the change management process? Because you're throwing a lot of change into the organization with both ERP and inventory management implementations.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I've been involved with ERPs and the implementation of them for years. And so it doesn't necessarily scare me, but our partner was very good at reminding us that, hey, we've got a lot of people that are going to be impacted. We got a lot of users. Let's talk about each of these users, or the different groups of users, and how are we going to help them feel comfortable with what we're doing and help them feel like this is a positive change. So I think the partner was key to helping us identify it early. And that was well before we even signed on the dotted line with Acumatica, that we had started having those conversations. And so having that kind of built into our thought process as we rolled through the training and the actual implementation, we involved a lot more people than I originally would have thought to involve. Mm-hmm. And so by getting them involved early in testing and learning, go live day was not, a big scary thing for anybody. And so I think that helped us to be pretty successful as we launched, to be able to not have as much anxiety around it. Was just early involvement and early recognition, kind of from a management or from a decision maker standpoint, that this was going to be a big deal. And so we needed to, honor those people and honor what they had been doing and how it was going to change.
Do you get any curveballs, any, unexpected challenges? And that's probably a dumb question, but anything come to mind? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other phrase that comes to mind is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. So, we provided all these opportunities for people to get exposure to both Acumatica and Netstock ahead of time. And, most people took a good advantage of that. So they were comfortable and familiar, but, go live day, there were still people saying, how do I log in? What are we doing again? And,
That might
I
be
guess
me. I'm probably
I
that
didn't
person.
necessarily anticipate that.
Yeah. There's always, last minute homework. So I'm kind of guilty sometimes. So James, you have a lot of experience with this because obviously deploying ERPs, a lot of change, a lot of aspects to it. So tell us a little bit about your change management process at Acumatica and some of the stories behind that.
Sure, absolutely. ERP can be a very daunting task for any organization, especially when you're smaller and you're coming off of a legacy system that's been in place for years, or an entry level product like QuickBooks. I think really best practices. I mean, we've been around a long time. We've seen some of the best practices. We operate through a partner channel, right? And our partners have years of experience helping companies across industries, so they've got their own kind of unique approach and best practices as well. But I think one of the keys here is really every implementation is different. Justin mentioned it earlier. Their business had some unique challenges, and you really have to start with kind of a template and be willing to adapt that implementation template based on the company, not only their industry, their requirements, but their organizational culture. Some organizations, they want to self-implement, right, which is challenging and not necessarily recommended. But you can empower the employees. You can create power users in that organization, kind of a train the trainer approach. Other organizations, they want to rely on their partner to do the majority of the work so they don't have to pull their employees away. So I think it really depends on the organization and the requirements. The other thing, though, I think it's pretty critical here for change management specifically is making sure everybody's on the same page. If there's going to be a change in the implementation methodology, that needs to be documented. It needs to be agreed on. The partner that's doing the implementation as well as the customer, everybody needs to be lock and step and understand what's happening. And, it gets even more complex, as you guys know, when you're implementing with multiple ISV solutions like Netstock, right? Because there's things that need to happen in the ERP system that directly impact how Netstock would be set up.
Yeah, that's great feedback. So very helpful. All right, so just kind of moving on. So it's still happening. So organizations continuing to work through the supply chain effects, of managing through the pandemic. I keep calling this the pandemic hangover. And now we have, interest rates, rising interest rates, increased cost of capital, another marketing term, we call it a double whammy. But it's one of the oldest sayings in business that cash is king. And we all know having cash on hand, especially when you're a small, mid-sized business, having cash on hand is your business's lifeline to success. So another quick poll here. How will your company finance your future inventory? It's be interesting. Some of you may not know, but you may not be the right people. Yeah. Your cash flow. It seems to be coming up. And share results here. Yeah, it seems like cash flow, because that goes back to, again, kind of managing inventory and helping that build your process to financing either inventory investments or product investments, etc. So
I think it's interesting, Jefferson. I think if we asked that question a year ago, there would have been a lot more bank financed answers. But because the interest rates are so high, the cost of capital is so high, people are looking elsewhere. And of course, current cash flow is a great way. And if you can unlock cash from inventory, that's a much less expensive way to finance the next inventory that you need to buy.
Yeah, we hear that time and time again from our customers that, again, they can either whether it's new facilities or they're reinvesting into new product development, you're not having to go back to the bank to do that. So it's definitely key. So look, we're kind of getting towards the end, but so I think I'd rather take it back to Justin. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you again, about the benefits that you've gained. We've touched upon a bunch of them from deploying both Acumatica and Netstock. You saved a whopping, a ton of money over this 2 years, $1.3 million in excess inventory. But, time, money, speed to market, how quick were you able to see the results? Maybe walk us through some of those benefits, whether they're soft benefits or hard benefits.
Yeah, when I think of the benefits, I don't know. There's probably two or three things that come to mind first. Number one, the time savings. Just for me as kind of managing that inventory process, like I said, it would take about 8 hours to get an order, at least just ready to have a conversation about. Not ready to place with the supplier, but ready to have a conversation. After getting Netstock integrated and feeling like the data coming through Acumatica was as accurate as we could expect, that process literally went down to 30 seconds. Jump into Netstock, create an order, and then I could start having a conversation with people about that. So that was huge right out of the gate to go there. Like we've talked about, the 1.3 million, that allowed us to flex our business and to pay down some of that revolving credit that we had, and to invest in some other products and some other things to help our business to grow and to remain stable. And then I think the last thing that I really probably have undervalued is the change it made in our supplier relationships. Mm-hmm. In the past, it was a conversation of, hey, we really need you to make that stuff and send that stuff to us. And it was real generalized terms like stuff. But with Netstock, we were able to have a phone call and say, hey, these are the 3 SKUs that are hot this week. So what can we do? And, we have a great supplier. And so our conversation was very dynamic, and they would say, okay, great. Thanks for that info. We'll get back to you. And oftentimes when we'd come back the next week, they would tell us, all right, those 3 SKUs are in production right now. They'll be done at the end of next week, or, whatever the time frames were. But that, just to be able to have those very clear, pointed conversations with the supplier, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, that's been huge. And they have really appreciated, and actually they rolled out a lot of these conversations with some of their other big customers, because they recognized how important it was. They had their own forecasting tools. They had their own ideas of what people were going to order. But when we were telling them specifically, hey, next week, I need this, that was a fundamental change for their business as well. And that really wouldn't have happened without the clarity we got out of Netstock. So those are a few of the real key benefits that I think we got from the partnership between Acumatica and Netstock.
Yeah. Yeah. The real data, empirical data to go back and say, this is what we need.
Yep.
Yeah. Justin, you don't understand how glad it makes my heart to that you went from 8 hours to 30 seconds, because that's, when I was still demoing software to prospects and I press that create order button and I go, this is the magic, a perfect purchase order in seconds. It's huge. It really is.
Yeah. Well, and what we learned was that it was really a conversation starter for us.
Yeah.
Prepare the order and then let's go look through it, because that's the other thing, for as sophisticated as you want to be, at least in our business for inventory, you still have to stop and think about it. Sure. The system can do all the algorithms in the world, but there's still data that doesn't exist in the system, things that people know. And so that also, this Netstock really helped us kind of formalize that conversation
Yeah.
of, hey, here's, rather than somebody kind of ordering in a vacuum, it was, hey, here's what the system says. Let's have a conversation about it. And, you know, it was still way less than 8 hours, even to have 3 or 4 different conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so important to have the human in the loop, right?
Yep.
Because, you know, like you say, the algorithm can only get you this far, but it gets you that first 80%, and then
Yep.
you can finalize it. Absolutely.
That's cute. Well, look, I think it's been a great discussion. We're starting to get some questions here. So unless Barry or James, you have any questions for Justin, we can kind of move on to some of the questions, if that's okay with everyone. Perfect. Okay, so here's one came up in the chat window. So and everyone, please feel free to submit some questions in the Q&A module. We have some queued up already. So here's one. Do they have lead times and reorder min-max safety figures established before utilizing Netstock? If not, did Netstock help determine those figures? I guess that's going to go to James. I'm sorry, to Justin.
I think that will be a Justin question.
Justin, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah. So we had a few mins and maxes out there. Netstock and the clarity we got from it helped us identify what those should be. And it's Barry mentioned this earlier. It's a evolution as you get more data, as you learn more about your business, as your business changes. Like it's never going to be a static thing, at least not in our business. But the lead time piece is huge in my perspective, because having different types of products from different suppliers, you can put in different lead times, and even different lead times to different warehouses. So we have a location in Hawaii. Obviously, it takes a lot longer to ship from the mainland to Hawaii than it does, 6 hours down the freeway to get to me here in Utah from our supplier. So that was huge to be able to have all those different variables defined in Netstock to help us forecast appropriately by location.
Yeah. I think the big thing that Netstock adds is the dynamic levels that get set. Often when we get a new customer, they would say something like, we have a 6-week safety stock, or we have just a level, and that doesn't really work so well, because in the low season, that's way too much inventory that you're carrying, and in the high season, that might not be enough. And so what we always try to do is keep your safety stock and your cycle in sync with your demand and your risks and so on. And as as your supplier improves, your safety stock automatically decreases, because there's less risk and so on. So absolutely important to have those things dynamic instead of just a static number, like you say, Justin.
That's great. So a couple more here, so a few more. So why can't my ERP do this? I guess in terms of inventory optimization, inventory management. I thought my ERP could do this. So maybe, Barry, you kind of answered before, but why don't you readdress that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, the ERPs we see as really, really critical in terms of being that source of truth. And I think, like Justin said earlier, the better you can run your ERP system, the more hygienic you can have the data in there, the better chance you have to improve things after the fact. And ERPs, we can work exclusively with ERPs only. Our system cannot work without an ERP, so it's a complementary design. But what ERPs do is they're good at the transactions, and they're good at reporting, looking backwards. What happened, right? How did my inventory move? What did my cash flow do, and so on. But where a system like Netstock comes in is like looking forward, forecasting what we're going to do, having that conversation with your supplier, saying, this is my plan for the next 6 months. How can you accommodate us? Looking forward into understanding those dynamic safety stock levels, for example, minimax levels. So that the ERPs generally don't do that. And that's where we kind of fill a niche to help with those forward-looking questions.
Great. Makes sense. Here's one for kind of both James and Barry. So what's the implementation timeline for a rollout? So for both, say, ERP or Acumatica rollout and a Netstock implementation. So maybe, James, you want to take that first?
Sure. ERP can be a big implementation. It can be a relatively small and phased approach to implementation. So it is going to really depend. We've had companies that have implemented Acumatica in as few as a couple months. Certain scenarios where maybe they're coming off of a parent company was spinning them off as their own organization. They had no choice, right? You've got 2 months, get your own system and get it implemented. So you make it happen. But ideally, with ERP, you don't want to force it, right? You want to have a very planned and systematic approach to an implementation to improve your ability to succeed. So most of our customers, 4 to 6 months, some of them a little longer. It really depends on how much they want to implement in a phase 1 versus coming back and implementing some things in a phase 2 or a phase 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. Barry?
Yeah, so in terms of the Netstock implementation, it's obviously not a full ERP, so it's a much lighter implementation. We generally look at something along the lines of 60 hours from implementation, but that can span anything from 6 to 12 weeks to do. Where we find the biggest kind of slowdown in implementation is exactly what Justin was talking about, is if your data is not very good in your ERP and you have to clean that up first, because if you just put garbage data in, you're going to get garbage results out. That can often take the longest time to just get that right. And we found that a good business partner is critical in that scenario. Business partner can go into can help you go into your system and address a whole lot of data issues very quickly, instead of having to manually go and update things and so on. So, for us, a business partner that's really on the ball, works with the client, works with the ERP, can really shorten that implementation time dramatically.
Yeah, I don't want to lead the jury here, but I think, Justin, you said you did it in like a couple of weeks, like the Netstock implementation, or it was under a month, I think, right?
Yeah, we were a couple of weeks at most. And like Barry said, our data wasn't fantastic once we started looking at it in Netstock, but you got to start somewhere. So we just dove in and got it up and running as quick as we could.
Yeah, and what we always, sorry, Jefferson, what we always say is, your data not being in perfect shape is not an excuse not to start, right? Because you're already planning, right? You're planning on that data anyway. So, a system like Netstock will quickly highlight. In fact, we've got a whole dashboard just to show you where the data issues are. But you might as well start and get those, highlighted so that you can go and fix them, instead of, waiting for the perfect time to start. So yeah.
And this kind of goes back to the ROI question. What's the typical ROI for deploying, purpose-built solution like Netstock? So, we've heard some of this from Justin, but Barry, do you have any kind of benchmark?
Yeah, typically we see that within a year, our customers reduce their inventory levels by at least 10%. So, if you look at, maybe you have $10 million of inventory, you can take $1 million out, in a year. Obviously, someone like Best Vinyl has done far better in far shorter time. And then also at the same time, which is the important part, is you can drive your service levels to your customers up by 3 to 5 percentage points in the same time frame.
Yeah.
And that's important, because it's not just that you're removing inventory, but now your customers can't get what they want. It's doing the two things at the same time, giving them better service, while at the same time improving your cash flow by having less dead inventory in your warehouse. So that's the kind of ROI we see, sometimes shorter, sometimes dramatically shorter, sometimes longer, but that's in general what we see.
Yeah, so you have both sides of the coin you're addressing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're kind of getting down to the wire here. So one more question. I think this is a quick one rather. Does Netstock integrate with ERPs other than Acumatica? The answer is yes, but maybe Barry, you can talk about how many integrations we have, how many built integrations we have with other ERPs.
Yeah, I think Justin actually touched on that early on in the discussion, where it's important for us to have a seamless integration with ERPs. We don't want our customers to now try and download stuff out of ERP and then upload and it doesn't work and the format's not right and all that kind of stuff. So, we partner with our ERPs partners in a way that automatically gets that data in and out. So you can even push that purchase order back into your ERP. And as such, we have about 40 ERPs that we work with that we have a tight integration like that. Some of them still legacy on-premise ERPs. Obviously, all the newer like Acumatica cloud ERPs is where the modern systems are connected. And we really pride ourselves in that very robust integration that just works day in and day out for our customers.
That's great. All right, so I'm going to share the last slide here. There you go. So again, Justin, thank you so much for your time. It's been an incredible story, and thank you for sharing with everyone. James, thank you for your time. Thank you for the participants on the call today. We'd love to talk to you further. We have some contact information here on the slide. As I said, we'll get you the recorded version within 48 hours. And I hope everyone learned something today. I know I did. I always do. I always learn a lot from Barry. He's forgotten more than I'll learn about supply chain solutions. But again, thank you for your time. Have a great hump day. Today's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. And enjoy your holidays, everyone. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Justin.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks for the invite.